Hello and welcome to the July 15th edition of Lifeboat Academy Coordination Circle. Um, I know it's only been the 2 weeks since we had our last circle, but it feels like a really long time ago. And so I'm looking forward to reminding ourselves what it is we are doing and such. So, as is our tradition, we start with grounding. We center the earth, we center the land, and we ground ourselves in it. And would anyone like to do the grounding today? I will jump on that then. So we start with the land because the land was here before we were, and the land will be here after we are gone. And we only exist because the land saw fit to rise us up as people. And we only continue to exist because of the land providing all that we need to breathe and to drink pure water and to eat nourishing food. And if we take care of the land takes care of us. And we start with that as a reminder because it is so easy for us to get distracted by the busyness of day-to-day stuff and to believe our own press as human beings and think that we're the center of everything. So we take a moment to ground ourselves, to feel our feet on the ground, connecting with the earth, to breathe in the air that is co-created by all of our relations, and to see ourselves where we are, all different places in the landscape, all connected, all seeing different aspects of things. So I invite you to take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, just feel the weight of your body pressing down into the seat where you are. Take another deep breath in, breathing in that cool, energizing air. And on the exhale, just let go of anything that no longer serves you. Feel the weight of gravity just pulling it and releasing it from your body, knowing that the earth will take it, regenerate it, and return it to you refreshed and renewed. Take another deep breath in, and on the exhale, connect with the ancestors, both the ancestors that have cared for the land where you find yourself for time immemorial, and the ancestors who came together to make that genetic code that is you through all of their adventures throughout many generations, and to cultivate some gratitude for all of the stewardship, all of the care that has been performed, given over the long haul that brought us to where we are today. And to let that gratitude inspire a sense of joyful obligation to become a good ancestor, to right any wrong relations, to get to know your neighbors one more time, and to come back and focus on what really matters. So with that, one more deep, cleansing, energizing breath of air in. And on the exhale, just feel yourself coming back into this space. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and find your way back to the circle. And the circle, as I see it, is Ronnie, Roland, and me. And so I don't have a good check-in question for today. So actually just old and simple. How you doing today? And what's on your mind for the agenda? How you doing? And any hot topics up for you on the agenda? Over to you, Ronnie.
I'm doing pretty well. Doing better mood wise than I have in a while, which is interesting. Um, Might be because I took a little nap. Naps are nice. Um, I don't really have any. The only thing I can think of for the agenda is debriefing the six conversations session from last week. Over to Roland.
In terms of uh, check-in, I am curious about what kind of acceptable, unacceptable check-in questions we can come up with. Um, and yeah, over to you, Ben.
All right. How am I doing? I'm doing much better. We had a little nap too, and I found it very refreshing. I was it's a Monday back after a disrupted week last week because I was traveling to do a retreat. And so there's just that whole sort of getting back into my rhythm, which I was off my rhythm this morning. And I think after the nap, I might be a little bit more back in sync. So yeah, yay, naps. Naps are very good things. And yeah, I think really going over our kind of check-in stuff on the six conversations and also then the Connect the Dots Club, since that will be following on the heels of the six conversations. So I'm going to share my screen with the agenda and we can just get to it. All righty, so we've done our grounding and check-in. I think actually it would probably be a good idea for us to take a little time for the North Star and remind ourselves about why we're bothering to do this. And I think I am called to focus on tensions, on navigating the tensions. And so I think the question that I'm going to put before us are ultimately, what are the tensions that we are trying to address in the work that we are doing in the Lifeboat Academy? And what are the drivers underlying those tensions? So over to you, and let's do two rounds, one initial sharing and then reflections on what each of us is sharing. So tensions and drivers, over to you, Ronnie.
We are addressing how the systems and structures that many of us have been relying on are falling apart at a rate that seems to be increasing, or at least more apparent. And people are freaking out. Over to Roland.
I think that one of the important things that we're doing is finding ways to get clarity to clear the way to help us do and figure out what the right thing is. Yeah, that's the ongoing project. Over to Ben.
Lately, I've really been drawn to the addictive, the parallels between addiction and uh, in yeah, I don't even know if it's a lack of willingness. It's this sort of, it's almost like a perceptual blindness to what's going on. That sort of people complaining, but then not willing to take action, or always wanting to point at someone else, something else. So there seems to be a kind of, I find it crazy making that people are freaking out and yet doubling down on doing things the same old, same old. And Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is a psychological thing and how much of it is simply a cognitive thing, like not having a lens to be able to see, or can people see and they just don't like what they're seeing, so they reject it. Um, so yeah, that's the parallels with addiction. And back over to you, Ronnie, for now that we've each had a chance to share. What are you noticing in the shares?
What do we need to create in the place of the old structures? And how do we embody our values and invite people in when it's very new for almost everybody to engage in these different ways? Over to Roland.
I think what I'm noticing, well, and this might be more sort of undercurrents, but um, what tools do we have and that we use that work? Yeah. uh, because we often talk about uh, combining the what works from before with what is being discovered now, and so I'm kind of thinking of the who is it? The future is already here, but unevenly distributed. And yeah, so we have tools. We've been working at developing our skills in using the tools. So what are they? How are we using it? How are we using them? And uh, something else, some other something that is interesting and insightful, which Ben shall provide. Over to Ben.
It's William Gibson's.
Right.
Gibson is the future is already here, but unevenly distributed. Well, and I think that it does make me think of invitationality and the appreciative inquiry, shine the light on what you want to grow. Which also reminds me of, I think it was a comment that Andy made in one of our 6 conversations about the sort of sacredness of attention. And we talk a lot about the practices, and I think there is something about that practice of you can amplify the freak out. You can stay focused on the impossibility of the task or the the uncertainty or whatever, or you can stay focused on, well, this works a little better than that, so let's do more of this and less of that. So yes, I feel like it is that does, and it feels to me like that is a discipline to shine the light on what grows. Oh, and the other thing too, I think it's that the both and, because there's creating the invitation, which is, I think, in our our modern way of thinking, that's about making it all appealing and friendly and positive. And there's something also about, sometimes compassion is a kick in the ass. And it's both inviting people in, but then also kind of holding people in the discomfort in a good way. Because there's the discomfort is good, and we have there's a lot of reaction against discomfort. but it's a necessary part of what we're talking about. So, next up is our annual and seasonal plan. Where are we? We are, in terms of the seasonal plan, we are in the middle of actually very close to the end of our 6 conversations about lifeboats. We have been working on going from the bottom up just because that seemed timely. We have been working with woofers, and we've been getting a bunch of projects done on the land, which has been very exciting. And we're sad to see our 2 most recent woofers leave today. We have continued to work through the puzzle of what kind of how do we work within the current legal system to be able to set things up to get beyond our current legal system. The Principles and Governance has really been on hiatus, and the Connect the Dots Club is on the horizon. So that's where we are as we're moving through the season. And for the year, we're really trying to figure out how do we establish that legal entity? How do we make it possible to purchase a property, this one hopefully, or some property, to give ourselves a landed base of operations? And how do we continue to onboard people into the work of the Lifeboat Academy? So, and then on the physical side, establishing the baselines and the processes so that we can actually be using our AMAC reflect and experimental process in a way that is useful. So comments, thoughts, anything missing, any questions on where we are in terms of annual and seasonal plan? Over to you, Ronnie.
Nothing from me. Over to Roland.
It's all clear and complete for me. Over to you, Ben.
Awesome. So next up, we have a look at the calendar. Got to stop share and reshare. Okay, so this is our week. We have a very normal week going on. So tomorrow night is the last of our 6 conversations. And Wednesday we have mentorship and then podcast. And Thursday we have a scheduled heart work meeting that I have on my to-do list to reschedule as the Foodlands Network Circle is happening at the same time. And we will need to reschedule heart work, but that'll happen. Oh, and the other thing too is that there is a WSANIC opportunity on Friday. They're doing some invasive weed clearing down at the village site next to Poets Cove, which the name of which I need to remember, but I have not committed that to memory. So anyhow, that's an opportunity on Friday. And then when we look at next week, we've got the outreach meeting on the 23rd. The block there is just because of the Calendly setup. And we have a scheduled navigation session on Wednesday, and then our next finance and legal guild next Friday. So we don't have anything wildly unusual on the calendar. Is there anything missing or any comments? Ronnie, over to you.
Nope. Over to Roland.
Everything looks fine. Over to you, Ben.
All righty, clicking it all off here. And so guild reports, and this is, I think we can treat this also as a check-in since the main projects. Let's actually start with outreach and network and talk 6 conversations. So Ronnie, how about over to you? Since I was not present for the last one, debrief on the last of the 5th conversation.
Yes. So in terms of facilitation, I think it was fine. We went a little bit over time, but nothing too overtime. Um, a few people commented that the questions for that session were difficult and tricky to answer. There was a lot of provoked thought about the words that were chosen and also the concept more broadly of commitments and and how do we make commitments if we haven't started our lifeboats yet? So it was kind of interesting perspectives, different perspectives on commitments and what that means. Um, so yeah, lots to chew on there. Um, but even though people were struggling, I think struggling is interesting, and I think that the conversation was still rich, and there was a lot of vulnerability, and a lot came up. So yeah, that's what I got. Over to you, Roland.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Yeah, it was not an unusual amount of overtime. I think it was the usual amount of overtime. So that was good and kind of expected. And yeah, the questions were much more challenging. It was interesting to note the direction that people were taking, including myself, because there was the word cost, as in cost to others, but then there was keep or fail in my commitments, and there was a lot more focus on the failing than on the keeping. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And there was the second question too. There was a word in parentheses. I can't remember what it was that for me turned the whole question into it was really problematic, but I can't remember what the word is now. Um, Interesting, problematic. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So they were really difficult questions, and it was interesting. And I'm not sure where it landed with the group. I think it's a good group, and that they were interested. And the energy was very different at the end of this session for me.
Mhm.
So over to you, Ben. Any observations or comments on the comments that we've made?
Well, first I'm looking at the questions and there's nothing in parentheses in the second question. The second question is, what is the promise or commitment I am unwilling to make or postponing?
I added parentheses because I thought it was difficult to understand
Oh, okay.
the
Okay.
question without them.
Okay.
It helped me. It helped me, so that's what I did. I don't know
Okay.
if that's yeah.
What did you add? I'm just curious.
I put or postponing in parentheses
I got
because
it.
when
I
I read
think
it,
that
all
yeah, and I don't think so. Knowing that, I don't think the parentheses made it more confusing. I think the word was already difficult, so I totally get in trying to make the sentence clearer.
Yeah. Well, and it is so yeah, my observation is in a way I'm not surprised. It's actually making me think of how much of it is psychological and how much of it is intellectual. Um, because whether you've started to build your lifeboat or not, that's still the fact is people in your life um I kind of feel like this is the crux of it. Are people actually committing to something? And I think that has been my experience throughout is a lot of interest and a lot of tentativeness. Um, so anyhow, yeah, it's just interesting. I look forward to having a chance of doing it again and seeing how it may change. Um, and I'm not surprised that it seems tricky and provocative. It's interesting that I would not, well, I knew that it was going to be provocative to ask people about you know, how are people around you affected by your commitments? And maybe that in a different setting, we didn't really spend much time thinking about that from a facilitations angle, you know, like how might people read or interpret, and is there any way of contextualizing that? It's just, and I agree. I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with people struggling and it being provocative. That's actually kind of the whole point. Very interesting. Next steps then, I guess, is talking about, we've got our well, actually, and is there anything else that anyone wants to add in terms of either the last conversation or anything else having to do with outreach more broadly? Okay, so then next steps would be the sixth conversation, which is the invitation conversation. And I can't remember what the questions are. I'm going to just look them up. Do you remember?
At this point, that was like 7 or 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, I
Talked
know.
about it. I have no idea.
I know it's the invitation conversation is the last one, but I can't recall what the actual questions are.
Yeah, this actually might be more suited for the coordination, the facility meeting.
Oh, found it. Okay, hang on. As is always the case. I was just curious about the questions, just to who needs to be part of this conversation? What are the skills, capacities that we need in our lifeboats? And what is the hurdle? What's being asked of those who say yes? Oh, that's a good one. Actually, that's a great segue to the whatchamacallit, the Connect the Dots Club, I think. Yeah. All right. So any other thoughts on next steps? Over to you, Ronnie.
Wait, next steps for 6 conversations?
6 conversations and or outreach.
Well, I was also thinking about, we talked about using the Facebook group to use the Facebook group. And one thought I had was, in this conversation, we're going to be talking about invitations and inviting people in to our lifeboats. And so I thought we could use the Facebook group to start doing that work. Basically, I attended the 6 conversations, and I'm going to be making this invitation to these people, or I'm going to be starting this project, or I'm going to be having this conversation. I don't know, sort of like an accountability space, and a sharing space to sort of continue the conversation in a more public arena, like we've talked about. And also just share what people got out of the experience as well. Kind of like really anything goes, reflections, plans, ideas. Over to Roman.
So I'm just, in terms of for the coordination circle, I think we also talked about using the Facebook group, and that's all I'm going to comment on at this point. And I still think that is an interesting idea. And I am not entirely sure what that looks like. And is it something that needs to be discussed first, or is it something that we something experimental? And no, experimental isn't the right word. Emergent, to use a buzzword. You know, do we just want to try using it and see what seems to work better, or do we want to talk beforehand about how the coordinators could use that page? Over to Ben.
Well, it turns out we have a task in here already called
No.
social media experiment number one,
Ah,
generated at our June 25th outreach meeting. And what the goal is to find effective use of social media and to document what is and isn't working. And so I would say this is a good time to revisit that conversation. And I think what I'm going to do is park it for now. Let's keep going with the Connect the Dots Club. And because I think the two could probably, there might be some overlap in how this fits between both of them. Yeah, I love Asana. I'm becoming more and more enamored with its lovely little features. Turns out we have that written down somewhere. So any other thoughts on next steps? Back to you, Ronnie.
I think that's all I have for now. Over to Roland.
yeah, yes, I don't have anything to add, and I'm are the things we're going to talk about next about the for the coordination circle, or is it for guild conversations? Is just sort of keeping that in mind. Back to you, Ben.
Right, because the whole point, you say that like there's an either or as opposed to an overlap. Because we are coordinating the work of the guilds, and so that's going to be a little bit of feeling into what happens in the guilds and what happens in between. So moving on with that, let's go then to Heartwork and specifically talking about Connect the Dots Club. So I think where we are now, if I remember correctly, and I'm going into our notes. Oh, right. Actually, it felt to me like we had a bit of a breakthrough meeting the last time we met to talk about Connect the Dots. And we really clarified some of the steps on it was, so we've been talking about phase one as prep work, phase two as sort of the broader conversation about the resources that we are organizing under the Lifeboat Academy. And then phase three is the way we've been talking about it. It's all metaphor, so don't take it overly seriously. But about phase three is bringing in the undergraduates. So phase two is sort of the faculty talking through what we want on the syllabus, and then phase three is testing out that syllabus with undergrads, with the new lifeboat builders. And I think the big aha for me was using Miro as the landing place for that conversation, that phase two conversation. And so we have a Miro board that we've been setting up that has the things that the resources that we've already brainstormed now are on the Miro board. And one of the next steps is inviting people. They're like post-it notes on the Miro board, one post-it per book or video or website. And the idea is that we'll invite people to continue to brainstorm, but then in phase two, in the work that we're doing to actually talk through it, we'll use the Miro board and physically cluster the different resources close together, kind of creating our Venn diagram, and then have conversations about we'll create clusters. Within that cluster, we'll vote on the resources that seem to be most useful for most people, and then have some conversations about why we think they're useful, and draw some connections between the different clusters, how they relate. And so in some sense, I think we are ultimately answering the question. It's that almost that invitation question of not just what are the skills that we need in the lifeboat, but it's also what do potential lifeboat builders need to know, and what different skills does a lifeboat builder need to have. So I think that's my memory of the last meeting, which was over a week ago, so is in the distant. So yeah, do you have anything to add, Roland?
You did a very good job.
All right. Over to you, Ronnie. Any questions or observations?
Seems cool and smart.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything, let's come back to anything else that we want to cover in terms of recent activity or next steps?
I think for next, oh, sorry,
Go
is
ahead.
it me? No, it's Ronnie. Sorry, Ronnie, you go.
Over to you, Roland.
Well, all right, then let's see. What would I like to say? I am wondering how so this is going to be is it tomorrow? Tomorrow is the last 6 conversations. The Connect the Dots Club, we did not talk at the last Heartwork meeting how we want to talk about it talk about the Connect the Dots Club. So maybe it would be useful to talk about that now with 2 members of the Heartwork Guild and 3 members of the Outreach Guild collected together in the coordination circle.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it can be dead simple. I mean, it's the, oh, sorry.
Over to Ben.
Yes. I had the same thought, obviously, because, just for timeliness, we can easily do an email after it, to, kind of, provide more information, but probably something light at the end to say, we're wanting to continue this. We've got our little blurb, which is, I think, is all we need, and we've already mentioned it. So I think that the big question is, do we have a date for when to invite people?
Mm.
And yeah, and those are some of the details which I don't think we want to talk about here. How many sessions do we want to do? What's the starting date? So it might just be, we'll send an email to everybody, and if you're interested, and we'll have the Miro board. Well, actually, maybe this comes back to the social media thing. Comes back to how do we start to engage people in the Facebook group. Over to you, Ronnie.
I feel like we don't want to wait too long before getting that up and running, especially because we've had this group of people who've been engaging every week and seem to be enjoying it. And so hopefully we can keep some momentum going. I think talking about the Connect the Dots Club in the Facebook group is a really good idea. And yeah, so putting a blurb about it in there and kind of how we did with the 6 conversations, maybe highlighting how it's different from other things that we've done. Because there are a lot of people in the Facebook group who have been to navigation sessions and lifeboat circles. It's like this is a place to make a bunch of different connections about all the different things that all these different influences and books and these things that we're all engaging with. To me, it's also like a place to kind of organize your thoughts, but like with other people, which is really useful. So just talking about the utility of the space, and then linking the Miro board so people can see what's already happening, and how to use it. And yeah, that's what I got. Over to Roland.
Yeah, I think those are good considerations in terms of what to say at the next 6 conversations or the last 6 conversations. The other few considerations is one of them is in terms of timing, and timing is something that we can talk about in the Heartwork meeting. But it's summer. And one of the things we talked about was trying to match with a more of a school year kind of vibe. And so along with that, following that thread, the other thing that we talked about was the navigation sessions. And in fact, I feel like the navigation sessions are closer in format to the 6 conversations than the Connect the Dots Club does. So at this point, it would be, I think, so I think I'm sort of flip-flopping from considerations into other things, so correct me if you want.
Yep, it's all good.
But so I was thinking about inviting people to the navigation sessions, if this is the type of conversation you'd like to continue to have. A little blurb, because not everyone has been to a navigation session, so a description of the navigation sessions, and then and then that's also letting people know that we're going to be announcing and talking about the Connect the Dots Club in the social media. So and enumerate that includes not just the Facebook group, but Instagram and the newsletter. So depending on people's comfort levels with different ways of communicating or preferences. So we can also say that the Connect the Dots Club is coming up. Brief little thing about that, where we'll be talking about it more and giving dates on when that's going to start in these ways. And yeah, so that's all the things that are running around in my head, I think. So over to you, Ben.
Yeah, this all, it makes sense and it seems like it's lining up. With the navigation session, in the invitation, I was wondering about doing a broader time poll for people who might be interested. I wonder, how much of it is just that we're trying to do it at the wrong time. So as part of that invitation, I think we could say, if you want to continue these conversations, have regular conversations like that, we have the navigation sessions. We'll be sending a link to a time poll. Please respond. And I think likewise with the timing, giving ourselves, here we are, it's already mid to late July. So saying, for I think we can even frame it that we'll spend the next couple of weeks debriefing online about the 6 conversations and getting ready for the Connect the Dots Club. And we'll be starting the Connect the Dots Club closer to the end of summer. And we still have the Miro board where people can be going on and posting for that. So yeah, I think over to you, Ronnie.
That all makes sense to me, and I like the idea of doing a time poll for the navigation sessions. And I'm also wondering about trying out as an experiment themed navigation sessions, because I think having a theme for, like, I really liked the 6 conversations and how each different meeting had a topic. And so with navigation sessions, instead of what is your tension this week, which could be about anything, it's like, What's your tension around talking to people? What's your tension around your project that you're working on? Just like some way of being a little bit more specific about getting into lifeboat building. Because it's kind of like the only thing I can think of to compare it to is in a 12-step program, you work all of the 12 steps, and then every week, you might pick a random step, and that's the theme for the session. So it even could be the 6 conversations topics rotating or something like that. I'm just trying to think of a way to sort of spice it up a little bit, and make it. I mean, navigation sessions tend to go deep, but see if we can go even deeper into lifeboat stuff. Um, Other than that, I have nothing else to add. Over to Roland.
And I may be jumping into Ben territory because Ben did talk about there's the 4 questions. Is it the 4 deep adaptation questions as a follow-up to the 6 conversations? So I agree having themes or a question is an interesting way of like providing a focus for the group is a different and interesting way of doing things. I was also thinking about invitations to the navigation for the new poll, and I'm thinking of one person in particular who used to come regularly, and to the navigation session. So. And I'm sure you're already going to be doing this, but sending it out to the old navigation group, as well as to the 6 conversations people.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same thought.
So over to you, Ben.
Yeah, this all makes sense. And I think the theming, it's one of those things where in some sense, I imagine what will happen is we will theme it, and then people will talk about whatever it is that they actually are the tension that they bring in. But it's a little bit of a crutch. I think people are probably, it seems easier to go to a themed conversation than you don't know what it is you're showing up to talk about. So I kind of feel like it's, I don't even know if the themes really matter so much as having a theme makes it a little bit more interesting. And I do like the 12 steps. We have, steps that we are recommending for lifeboat builders. And we just need to add some more steps so that we have more themes to talk about. But I think that could be really interesting, like to go through the things that we're suggesting people do and use that as a way of organizing it. So yeah, this all feels, the other thing too, this is kind of beyond, I think, coordination circle, but as part of the Connect the Dots Club, I've also been thinking about this MOOC collective writing thing. And it's what you said, Ronnie, actually is what brought it up for me, is that it is it's like a place to organize your thoughts with other people. It's this like collective thinking exercise. And that's what I want the writing to be as well. And it could be tying those things together, that there's actually a writing prompt that leads the navigation theme. And the thing that I've been coming back to is Roland and I have talked about writing a letter, an intervention letter. I love you and I want you to be well, but when you keep acting like a modern person, it affects me in these ways. And because in part, I think the Connect the Dots Club is also answering the question, what does a halfway house for people in recovery from late stage capitalism look like? Yeah, so that might be also something to sort of hang in this as well. So I like it, and it sounds to me then, just in terms of actual next steps, tomorrow at the 6 conversations, we let people know about the Connect the Dots Club. We let people know about the Navigating Via Tensions opportunity. We can actually, I'm saying this out loud. I think it's a good idea, but I'm open to, feedback that we actually show them the Miro board with the Post-its. We don't go into it, but it's like, here it is. Here's the little thing in the corner where it walks you through how you can add your ideas, just so people see that there's actually a thing. And later this week, we'll be sending out an email that invites you to a poll and with instructions on how to get involved in the Connect the Dots Club. And so that would be then I think we got it covered. Over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think I'm okay with having the Miro board there at the end to just give a little taste of what's on the horizon. Also, I feel like this ongoing question of like, how does outreach promote events through social media? I feel like we keep answering it, but it's like, if we have these themed navigation sessions, I could see a little graphic for each different theme, and then we can post that. And it's just a way of like making it a little bit more appealing and exciting, I think. Also, like most of the newsletters I send out are the same, but it's like this time we'll have like different themes and different colors and things happening, and we can connect. I feel like what you're saying is connecting the dots between the Connect the Dots Club and navigation sessions, which is really cool. Like really showing people how our ideas are emerging and they're flowing together and they're inspiring, writing, and people could write things that we share out on our pages and our website. It seems really cool. So I'm excited about it. Over to Roland.
I have nothing to add. It all looks good. Over to you, Ben.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm good. Back to you, Ron. All right. Well, we have done our 2 big updates, and we've gotten a little bit more work done on some of that social promotion stuff. Finance and legal, I will do a quick update on that as well. We met with our lawyers on Monday last week, so a week ago today. We went over the diagram that has been simplified from the more complicated diagram, and with one more level of simplification, I think we might have it. It felt like there was a good meeting of the minds with the lawyers and us. And I have on my to-do list a follow-up with the Finance Guild just to make sure that we're all, basically that we a reminder of the next steps that we talked about, which were it's the ball's in our court now with the second level of simplification to see if we can get a conversation with Joey about, does this make sense? There's some specific questions about, we could go this way, which would be a little bit more complicated legally, but would provide investors more control. Or we could go this way, which would be less complicated from a legal structure standpoint, but would require greater trust and confidence of the investors. And so there's some specific things to follow up on there. And I think also now, I think a lot of the legal language, like the language for the website, is almost there. Because now we have some specific, this will be a co-op. This will be a community services co-op, or the one organization will be a multi-stakeholder co-op. That's what it's going to be. So it's got a name, and we can actually label some of the things. So anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to just underline what you were saying earlier. I think that there was an aha for Bill and Elliot about what we were about. And the conversation to me indicated that there were the clarifications that they were asking for and the suggestions that they were making made it seemed to indicate that this time they got it, that the simplifying that we did worked. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what will come from them at this point. Because I don't think we have any. In terms of Bill and Elliot, do we have any homework?
For them?
Yeah,
No, they're
Okay,
waiting,
we're-
they're waiting for us.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, over to you, Ronnie. Any questions or comments?
That's just all really cool to hear. So making progress. Back to you.
Slow and slow. And last guild report is farm, food and housing, which is just to say our two latest woofers left this morning, Killian and Selena. And I think they had a really good time and they got a whole bunch of stuff done. We've got firewood in the woodshed, and we moved the goats, and the gardens are looking, all things being considered, looking much better. It's relentless weeding in the gardens just because it doesn't matter how deep we weed them. There's like years and years of weeds in there. Yeah.
And also, we did a pretty thorough cleanup of the farm. We got a bin
Right.
for things that we can't recycle or that we can't figure out if there's another use. We got a bin, and so did a lot of cleaning up there.
Including clearing out Paul's shed.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a lot.
so
Yeah.
we'll be able to start
Cool.
to move things in there from the temporary places
Yeah,
scattered about.
which is praise be. Our efficiency is going to increase about 50% because we'll spend less time wandering around.
Looking for
where the hammer
things.
is. We will continue to wander around looking for where the hammer is, but it will be less time doing that. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
We will at least know where the hammer is supposed to be.
Right, exactly. Cool.
Do you wanna
Okay.
click that off?
Actually, I wanted to go add those notes so that we'd have a record.
Okay.
But I think we can come back to then we've done our guild reports really, and I don't know that we haven't really been doing a sprint mantra, but let's just do one round. Any last thoughts for the good of the cause? So over to you, Ronnie.
Good job. Over to Roland.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I think what I'm most pleased about is the progress in the finance and legal, because I think it feels more now than it ever has to have that piece in place is what is going to help us move forward in so many other ways. So over to you, Ben.
I actually am most pleased about the Connect the Dots, the 6 conversations to the Connect the Dots Club in this, and I think it's also the legal conversation, I think, has really helped clarify this is what does a support structure for lifeboat builders look like? And there's material support which could hopefully come through the investors. And then there is the intellectual social support that comes from the Lifeboat Academy, from the mentors. And it seems like, and now that marriage feels very visible to me, and I think about this is a standard model for entrepreneurial incubators where somebody comes in with an idea for a project or a company, and they match them both with material funding and mentoring and support. And I think, we're really just trying to figure out how to do that model, not in a predatory way. So yeah, I'm excited about how things are coming together. So I think with that, we are adjourned, and barring the little technical difficulty in the middle, I think we were sticking to our time, so that's good. And I think we'll see everyone tomorrow at this last of the 6 conversations.
Sounds good. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.